They say that in the modern world, data is the new oil, but data doesn't move itself. It needs a pipeline, it needs a pump, and most importantly, it needs an engineer to keep the pressure from blowing the pipes apart. For 15 years, I was that engineer. I built the brain that controlled Thungti Apex logistics. I told the ships where to sail, the trucks when to drive, and the warehouses when to sleep. I was the architect of a billion-dollar nervous system. But when the new CEO looked at me, he didn't see an architect. He saw a salary he could cut. He fired me on a Tuesday. He thought he was saving money. He didn't know that without my fingerprint, the system had a countdown, a 30-day countdown. And the clock had just started ticking. The hum of a server room is a specific frequency. It's a low, throbbing drone, somewhere around 60 hertz, a sound that most people find irritating or anxiety-inducing. To me, it was a lullaby. It was the sound of the world breathing. I stood in the center of the cold aisle in Data Center Alpha. It was 3:47 a.m. on a Thursday. The rest of the city of Seattle was asleep, wrapped in rain and darkness. But in here, under the harsh fluorescent lights, the world was wide awake. This wasn't just hardware. This was Hydra. That's what I named the system 15 years ago now. Now Hydra was a Leviathan. I pulled out my tablet and tapped the screen to bring up the real-time visualization. It was a map of the world, covered in thousands of moving dots. Status report, I whispered to the empty room. I walked over to the main terminal. I typed in my credentials. Forizoser, Marcus F, access level. Root to God mode. There was a slight latency spike in the Osaka node, 3 milliseconds. Nothing a normal person would notice, but I felt it. I rewrote the load balancing algorithm in real time. My fingers flew. Tap, 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 enter. Asterisk, the latency dropped. 0. I leaned back and took a sip of my coffee. It was cold. It was always cold. This was my life. For 15 years, I had poured every ounce of my intelligence, my energy, and my soul into Hydra. I missed my daughter's first steps. I missed my 10th wedding anniversary dinner. I looked at the reflection of my face in the dark monitor. I was 45, but I looked 55. My hair was graying at the temples, thinning on top. I had dark circles under my eyes, but I didn't mind the toll, because I had built something that fun mattered. I was the Senior Vice President of Technical Infrastructure, but the title didn't matter. The Isieki Excessa mattered. I was the only one. The black box that made the actual decisions. That was mine. They called it Marcus Magic. I stood up and stretched. It was 4:15 a.m. I did my final check. This was a ritual I performed every 30 days. I opened a terminal window that was hidden. System check. Authentication required. Asterisk, asterisk. I typed in a string of characters. It wasn't a password. It was a cryptographic key. Enter. Asterisk, the identity confirmed. Marcus Vance. Resetting maintenance timer. Next check-in required. 30 days. Asterisk, asterisk, this was the dead man switch. It wasn't built for revenge. It was a safety feature. If something happened to me, Hydra would assume the system had been compromised. It would lock down the encryption keys. It would put the entire global logistics network into a medically induced coma. I closed the terminal. The timer was reset. 30 days of peace. I walked out of the server room, the heavy steel door clicking shut behind me. I took the elevator up to the 40th floor. I stood by the floor to ceiling windows, looking out over the city skyline. The first hint of dawn was bleeding into the eastern sky. I felt a sense of deep, abiding satisfaction. The system was humming, the world was moving, and I was the grease in the gears. I didn't know it then, but this was the last moment of peace I would have. I didn't know that 3 floors above me, in the executive suite, a decision had already been made. A decision that had nothing to do with code, and everything to do with quarterly earnings. The coffee in my mug had barely cooled when the atmosphere on the 40th floor shifted. The elevator doors slid open with a soft, expensive whoosh-shoo. David, the founder, walked out first. He looked tired. Walking half a step ahead of him was the predator. His name was Julian Sterling. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s. He didn't walk. He glided, propelled by an invisible engine of self-importance. He was flanked by 3 assistants, clutching iPads to their chests like shields. "Good morning, Apex," Julian said. His voice was smooth, polished, and utterly devoid of warmth. "I've been looking at the numbers and I see potential. But I also see fat. I see bloat. I see a company that is coasting on legacy instead of accelerating toward the future." I frowned. "Themdy legacy. Asterisk, the system I built was processing 3 million transactions a minute with 99.999% uptime. That wasn't legacy. That was a miracle." "We are going to pivot," Julian announced. "We are going to streamline. We are no longer just a logistics company. We are a sue-profit company." He turned and marched toward the executive glass offices, not looking at a single employee. 2 hours later, my desk phone rang. "Marcus," it was Sarah, the executive assistant. She sounded breathless. "Mr. Sterling wants to see you now." He is looking at the server budget." I knocked and entered. The office smelled of aggressive cologne. Julian was sitting behind David's old oak desk, but he had cleared off all of David's personal items, replaced by a single sleek laptop and a stainless steel Newton's cradle that clicked rhythmically. "Sit," he said. He spun his chair around. "Marcus Vance, Senior VP salary $350 K. That is a lot of money for a plumber. You fix pipes, don't you? Digital pipes, plumbing." "I designed the architecture that allows this company to function," I said. "Hydra isn't just plumbing. It is the brain. Without it, your trucks don't move. It requires a redundancy we can't afford," Julian corrected. He slid a printout across the desk. Red lines were drawn through half of the IT budget. "Why are we paying for 24-hour monitoring for the Osaka node?" "Because if Osaka goes down," I explained, "we lose the Asia-Pacific routing table. That costs us $4 million an hour." "If," Julian said dismissively, "has it gone down?" "Number, because I monitor it." "See, that is the problem, Marcus. You think you are a hero, but to me, you are an inefficiency. I've brought in a team of consultants from Deloitte. They are going to audit your code, and then we are going to migrate Hydra to a standard SaaS platform, something cheaper. You engineers are all the same," he sneered. "You think your code is poetry. It is not. It is a utility, like electricity. I don't care how the lights turn on, Marcus. I just care that they're cheap. Get out." I walked back to my desk. I sat down. I reached for my email. I started typing a message to Julian. Subject, critical system security protocol. Read urgently, asterisk. I wanted to warn him about the dead man switch. I remembered the look on his face. The sneer, the plumber comment. Swiss nobody is indispensable. Asterisk, if I told him now, he would force me to disable it. But if I didn't, it wasn't revenge. It was malicious compliance. I deleted the email draft. I leaned back in my chair and took a sip of my cold coffee. "Okay, Julian," I whispered. "You want to drive the ship? Here are the keys. But you better hope you know where the brakes are." For the first time in 15 years, I didn't check the Osaka node logs. I let it run. The consultants arrived on a Monday. They were a flock of 6, all wearing identical gray suits. They looked like sharks in human skin. For 2 weeks, they hovered. They stood behind the junior engineers, taking notes on clipboards without asking questions. On the 3rd day, I saw one of them, a kid named Brad, trying to map the database schema using a standard SQL visualizer. "That won't work," I said. "Hydra uses a non-relational sharding protocol." Brad looked up with a sneer. "We're auditing the legacy code, Marcus. We don't need a lecture. We're here to fix it." The summons came on a Tuesday. 10 a.m., a calendar notification popped up. "Phi meeting org structure update location. Conference room B, attendees, Julian Sterling, Veronica Holloway." Asterisk, asterisk, my stomach dropped. I knew that combination. CEO plus HR equals execution. I walked the long hallway to conference room B. It was a small glass-walled fishbowl. Julian was sitting at the head of the table checking his watch. Veronica, the director of HR, looked at a spot on the wall, refusing to meet my eyes. On the table, there was a single manila envelope. The consultants arrived on a Monday. They were a flock of 6, all wearing identical gray suits. They looked like sharks in human skin. For 2 weeks, they hovered. They stood behind the junior engineers, taking notes on clipboards without asking questions. On the third day, I saw one of them, a kid named Brad, trying to map the database schema using a standard SQL visualizer. That won't work, I said. Hydra uses a non-relational sharding protocol. Brad looked up with a sneer. We're auditing the legacy code, Marcus. We don't need a lecture. We're here to fix it. The summons came on a Tuesday. 10 a.m., a calendar notification popped up. THI meeting org structure update. Location, conference room B. Attendees, Julian Sterling, Veronica Holloway. Asterisk, stomach dropped. I knew that combination. CEO plus HR equals execution. I walked the long hallway to conference room B. It was a small, glass-walled fishbowl. Julian was sitting at the head of the table, checking his watch. Veronica, the director of HR, looked at a spot on the wall, refusing to meet my eyes. On the table, there was a single manila envelope. Close the door, Marcus, Julian said. We've been reviewing the operational efficiency. The architecture you built is proprietary. Obscure, it creates a bottleneck. It prevents us from scaling. It processes 3 million transactions a minute, I said. It is a liability, Julian corrected. And frankly, your salary is a liability. We are restructuring. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. He pushed the manila envelope toward me. And we thank you for your service, Veronica recited robotically. This packet contains your severance agreement. 2 weeks of pay for every year of service, provided you sign a non-disparagement agreement. I should warn you about the protocols, I said. If I don't maintain the core kernel, Julian laughed. Stop trying to make yourself sound important. The consultants have root access. Your credentials have already been revoked. At 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes ago, he didn't know. He thought he was locking me out. He didn't realize he was locking himself in, and without my credentials, the dead man's switch could not be reset. Even if I wanted to help him now, I couldn't. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. It was the calm of a man watching a car crash in slow motion. Okay, I said. Julian blinked. Okay. I stood up. I'll pack my things. Actually, Veronica interjected. Company policy. Terminated employees are not allowed back to their desks. They will escort you to the exit. She gestured to the glass wall. 2 security guards were waiting outside. Mike and Dave. Then began the walk of shame. They marched me down the main aisle. The silence returned. Every head turned. The junior engineers watched me. I saw shock. I saw fear. I saw the consultants smirking. Brad gave me a little mocking wave. We reached the elevators. Mr. Vance, Mike said. Can I have your badge? I handed it to him. Take care, Mike. The doors closed. 40th floor disappeared. I walked out of the building and into the Seattle rain. They beached into my pocket. My keys were there. And on the key ring, a small black USB token. It was useless now, but it was also the most dangerous object in the world. I checked the time. 10:45 a.m., 45 a.m., 25 days, 18 hours, 30 minutes, asterisk. I drove away. I didn't look back, but as I merged onto the highway, a strange thought occurred to me. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't have to worry about the Osaka node. I turned on the radio. I turned it up loud. The silence of my house at 11:30 a.m. was deafening. I stepped inside. The air was stale. For 15 years, this house had been a dormitory. Now, standing there in my wet shirt, I realized I didn't know what to do. I walked into the kitchen. I grabbed a beer. It was before noon. I didn't care. I sat at the kitchen island and stared at the blank screen of my phone. Usually, my phone was a living thing now. It was a black slab of glass. The first 24 hours were physical withdrawal. I thought about the Osaka node. I reached for my laptop. I wasn't 20 the system anymore, but I knew the back doors. I could run a passive diagnostic just to see if the heartbeat was healthy. Don't do it. Asterisk. I remembered the severance agreement. Asterisk. Any attempt to access company data will be considered a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Asterisk, if I pinged a server, Julian could sue me. He could have me arrested. 2 days later, the courier arrived. A bored-looking driver dropped a cardboard box on my porch. I dragged it inside. Marcus Vance, personal effects, asterisk, asterisk. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slashed the tape. This was the moment that killed the last shred of my loyalty. They hadn't packed my things. They had dumped them. My rare technical manuals were torn. My Employee of the Decade crystal plaque was chipped, and at the bottom of the box, face down, was the framed photo of my daughter, Lily. I picked it up. The glass was shattered. A spider web of cracks ran across Lily's face. A shard of glass fell out. They didn't care. To Julian, I wasn't a person. I was debris. I felt a heat rise in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It was pure, cold hatred. I carefully removed the photo from the broken frame and set it on the counter. Safe. Then I looked at the calendar on the wall. Foo Day 4. Asterisk, asterisk. I picked up a red marker. I counted forward. Today was the 18th. The last handshake was on the 14th. 30 days. I drew a big red circle around asterisk. Asterisk, 14th of October. No mercy. I went to the living room. I sat on the sofa. I put my feet up on the coffee table. Something I never did. I picked up the remote and turned on the television. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't going to fix it. I was going to let it break. I closed my eyes and listened to the rain. Somewhere, in a cold server room, a green light blinked. Tick, 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 asterisks. Day 6. I bought a lawnmower. It sounds ridiculous to say it out loud. I was a man who owned a house for 15 years, yet I had never owned a lawnmower. I stood in the aisle of Home Depot, debating the merits of a Honda self-propelled model versus an electric ego. I chose the Honda. I wanted the noise. I wanted the vibration. I spent the afternoon pushing the mower back and forth. The smell of cut grass and gasoline was intoxicating. It was real. It was tangible. It was the opposite of code. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, stopped her walk. Marcus, you are home early. Everything all right at the big office? I retired. I lied. Yearly retirement. Decided to focus on landscape. I restarted the mower. My mind drifted. Right now, it was 2 p.m. in the Foodie Apex Seed data center. The daily cron jobs for Frankfurt would be firing. Usually, I would manually allocate extra bandwidth. I wonder who is handling the Frankfurt spike. Asterisk, I thought. Then I hit a thick patch of clover. Not my problem. Asterisk, I told myself. Day 10. I was eating a sandwich and watching Bloomberg television. The ticker showed APX up 4%. The anchor introduced the new CEO, Julian Sterling. He was sitting in Finty my conference room. He looked relaxed, confident. The master of the universe. We are going to pivot, Julian announced. We are no longer just a logistics company. We are a Surrey profit company. We project a 15% reduction in operating costs by Q4. This is a new dawn for Apex. A new dawn, I mocked. He was selling the furniture to pay the rent. He was stripping copper wiring out of the walls and calling it wireless innovation. I looked at the calendar. Day 10, 20 days remaining. Asterisk, asterisk. Day 12, my phone buzzed. Notification from Signa, Sezender, Kevin Jr. Asterisk, 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 Marcus. You there? It is a mess, boss. The consultants, they don't know where the documentation is. They keep asking us where the admin dashboard is. Kevin, they're trying to build a guy on top of the BA database. The latency in Osaka went up to 400 milliseconds yesterday. We lost a batch of tracking numbers for a shipment of medical isotopes to Tokyo. Asterisk, my blood ran cold. Medical isotopes. I felt a pang of guilt. I could fix Osaka from here. I knew the backdoor IP, but I looked at the shattered picture frame of Lily on the counter. If I fixed it, Julian would take credit. I put the phone down. Sorry, Tokyo, I whispered. Day 15, the first public crack appeared on a logistics forum. Asterisk, asterisk, is Apex Logistics having API issues? Asterisk, 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 tracking numbers generating, but not updating. Asterisk asterisk called support. Wait time is 4 hours. Asterisk. These were the tremors before the earthquake. I went out to the garden. I knelt down and pulled a weed from the flower bed. Julian thought he could pull me out like a weed. He forgot that I wasn't the weed. I was the water. And the drought was halfway there. Day 28, 48 hours remaining. I was under the Volvo replacing the oil pan gasket. I needed to be under something heavy. My phone lit up. 3 texts from Kevin. Asterisk word alert. They found the demon Brad is literally sweating through his suit. I imagined data center, Alpha. Brad sitting at my old terminal. He would have seen the countdown. Tiny lockdown. 172,800 seconds. Brad wasn't a genius. But he knew what a countdown meant. My phone rang. Apex Logistics, HR Dept. Asterisk asterisk, I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. On the third call, I answered. Hello, Marcus, is that you? It was Veronica. Hi, it is Veronica. How are you doing? Enjoying the time off. The audacity was breathtaking. I am changing the oil in my car. Veronica, what do you want? We have a situation. The consultants ran into a file, encrypted with your user hash. It seems to be running a timer. We need the password to disable it. I don't have the password, I said. It is a physical token. Can you read me the numbers? Number read your own termination letter. Paragraph 4, Section B. The employee is strictly forbidden from interacting with security protocols. Asterisk if I give you that code, I would be in breach of contract. We are prepared to offer you a consulting contract, $500 for the code. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. They were sitting on $1 billion bomb, offering me the price of a laptop. That number is missing several zeros, and frankly, I'm busy. Busy, you are unemployed. I am fixing my car, and unlike Apex, my car actually runs. I hung up. They knew, but they still thought it was a bluff. They were haggling over pennies. I stood up. I went inside and opened my safe. I took out the severance agreement. I highlighted paragraph 4, section B. Then I took a picture of it and texted it to Kevin. For the first time in a month, I wasn't just waiting. I was winning. I looked at the calendar. Foin Day 29 was tomorrow. Asterisk asterisk tomorrow. The panic would set in. I checked my suit. The one I hadn't worn since the firing. It was clean, pressed. I had a feeling I might need it. Day 29, 23 hours remaining. The summons didn't come by phone. It came by courier. A black town car pulled into my driveway. A man in a cheap suit handed me a thick envelope. Asterisk asterisk subpoena to appear asterisk asterisk was stamped on the front. It was a corporate demand letter. Asterisk failure to appear will result in immediate civil litigation, seeking damages in excess of $50 million. Asterisk $50 million. They were trying to scare me, but I was a structural engineer, looking at a building with a cracked foundation. I went upstairs, I shaved, I put on my best suit, a charcoal wool blend that I usually saved for weddings and funerals. I tied my tie with a slow, deliberate precision. I put the cryptographic token in my pocket. I drove to the Fundy Apexi Tower. I walked into the lobby. Mike, the security guard, was at the desk. Mr. Vance, Mike said, "You are back." "Invited guests only, Mike." I showed him the letter. "Go right up," Mike said, "sir. It is a madhouse up there." I took the elevator to the 42nd floor. The doors opened and the noise hit me. It wasn't the hum of servers. It was the hum of panic. Phones were ringing. Assistants were running. I walked through the chaos like a ghost. I beached the main boardroom. I entered. The room was freezing. Julian Sterling sat at the head of the table. He looked terrible. In the corner, huddled over a laptop, was Brad, the lead consultant. On the projector screen, 40 time remaining 22 hours 14 minutes asterisk asterisk. "This is Marcus Vance," Julian said, "the saboteur." "I object to that term," I said calmly. "You planted a logic bomb," one of the lawyers said. "We have forensic evidence that a daemon process is blocking administrative access." "It is not a bomb," I said. "It is a dead man's switch." Why won't the system accept overrides? Because I looked at Brad. Brad tried to bypass the encryption using a brute force script, didn't he? You triggered the intruder alert. Give us the token, Julian demanded. Give it to me, Marcus, right now, and we won't press charges. Press charges for what? I asked. For following company policy? I slid the photo of my severance agreement down the table. Paragraph 4, Section B, 4E. The employee is strictly forbidden from accessing Apex logistics security protocols. Asterisk, if I give you the token, I am in breach of contract. I don't care about the contract, Julian screamed. What do you want, money? $10,000? Just plug the thing in? No, 50,000. I stood up. You have 22 hours, Julian. You called me a plumber. Well, that system isn't a pipe. It is a living thing, and right now, it is dying because you thought you knew better. You can't walk out, the lawyer shouted. I'll be home, I said, watching the news. I walked out. As the elevator doors closed, I saw Julian run out into the hallway. Marcus, he yelled. The doors slid shut. I sat in the driver's seat. It would be so easy to go back up, but nothing would change. The lesson wasn't finished. I drove home. The negotiation was over. Now, the execution began. Day 30, 11:55 a.m. I sat in my living room. My laptop was open to the 30xe tracking page. I poured a glass of 25-year-old scotch. 12 p.m. 0 hour. I refreshed the page. The loading circle spun. Then a stark white page appeared. Asterisk, asterisk, 503 service unavailable. Asterisk, asterisk, it had begun. The first call came at 12:03 p.m. It was Dan. Marcus, what is happening? The cranes just stopped. I have a container hanging 40 feet in the air, and the system won't let us lower it. The encryption keys rotated, I explained. The system thinks it is being hacked. Go to manual, Dan. We don't have paper. He laughed hysterically. We went paperless 5 years ago. 12:15 p.m. My phone lit up. Kevin, asterisk, Brad is crying. Asterisk, I turned up the television. The ticker flashed red. FIEP, IEPX, minus 15% asterisk, asterisk. The stock was free-falling. 12:30 p.m. The phone rang. Julian Sterling. Asterisk, asterisk, fix it, he snarled. I will kill you. I have the FBI on the line. No, Julian, I said. It is a safety feature. You fired the safety inspector. Name your price, he shrieked. I'm not on the network, Julian. I've been drinking. I can't drive, and I certainly can't code. I hung up. Then I turned off the phone. 1:45 p.m. I watched the news. CNN had a helicopter over the port. The line of trucks stretched for 3 miles. A driver said, I've got a load of insulin in the back. People are gonna die. That stung. I turned my phone back on. It rang immediately. Unknown number. Mr. Vance, a deep voice spoke. This is Arthur Pym, chairman of the board. Julian Sterling has been relieved of his duties as CEO. We are bleeding, Pym said. What is your price? I don't want a job, I said. I want an independent consulting contract. Full autonomy. Dan Miller promoted to coup and $5 million within the hour. And one more thing. I want a public apology, retracting the statement about spaghetti code. Pym sighed. You'll have your apology. Then I'll see you in an hour. I hung up. The 0 hour was over. Julian was gone. The board was on its knees. It was time to go back to work. Not as a plumber, but as the architect. The drive back to Venepex Logistics felt different this time. 30 days ago, I had driven this route in a daze of shock and humiliation, escaping the rain. Today, the sky over Seattle was a brilliant, piercing blue. I parked the Volvo in the visitor's lot. I didn't rush. The lobby was a scene from a disaster movie. There were news crews camped outside the glass doors, cameras pointed at the turnstiles like weapons. Inside, employees were huddled in groups. Mike, the security guard, was still at the desk. When he saw me, he stood up so fast his chair tipped over. He slammed his hand onto the gate release button. Mr. Vance, Mike breathed. Thank God. Rumor is, if the system isn't up by tonight, they're furloughing the hourly staff. I looked at Mike. Keep your uniform pressed, Mike, I said. Nobody is getting furloughed today. I took the elevator. When the doors opened on the 42nd floor, the silence was absolute. Arthur Pym stood at the end of the hallway. He was flanked by the shark-faced lawyer and Veronica from HR. "Mr. Vance," Pym said, "I believe you have something for me." The lawyer handed me a tablet. On the screen was a wire transfer confirmation. $5 million status completed, asterisk, asterisk. And the contract? Veronica stepped forward, handing me a leather-bound folio. "It is all here, Marcus, and the apology." She handed me a printed press release. Asterisk Apex Logistics retracts its previous statements. "We apologize to our chief architect, Marcus Vance." "Where is he?" I asked. "He is clearing out his office." We walked to the corner office. Julian Sterling was stuffing items into a cardboard box. He looked up when we appeared. His eyes were red-rimmed. "You ruined me," Julian whispered. "You planned this." "I didn't plan anything, Julian," I said. "I just followed your orders. You said I was a liability. You said the system was just plumbing." I pulled the black USB token from my pocket. I held it up. It caught the light. "It turns out," I said, "the plumbing is expensive." "Mr. Sterling," the security guard stepped forward. It was Dave. "It is time to go." Julian ripped his badge off and threw it on the desk. He walked past me. "This isn't over," he hissed. "It is for you," I replied. I watched him walk down the long aisle. The engineers stood up. They didn't wave. They didn't say goodbye. They just watched him go. A silent wall of judgment. I went where I belonged, down to the basement, to the server room. The team was there. Kevin actually cheered. "Boss, the latency is infinity." "It is a disaster, Kevin," I smiled. "But it is a disaster." I sat down. I plugged the USB token into the port. I typed in the master command sequence. Sudo for wind restore. The screen flashed. Lines of code cascaded down the monitor, like a digital waterfall. Restoring routing tables, opening API gateways. Asterisk, asterisk across the room, the wall of monitors flickered. The red error messages vanished, replaced by the soothing, rhythmic green. The map of the world reappeared. The dots started moving. I leaned back in my chair. I watched the data flow. It was a river of commerce, and I had stitched the wound shut. I took a sip of the coffee Kevin had placed on my desk. It was hot. 6 months later, I don't go into the office every day anymore. I go in maybe twice a week. I stroll in around 10 a.m. I wear jeans. My official title is Senior Strategic Advisor. Dan is doing a great job as COO. The stock price recovered. Julian Sterling hasn't been heard from since. I heard rumors he tried to sue, but no lawyer would take the case. As for me, I finally bought that boat, a 40-foot sailboat. I named her Sivanadi Hydra. On weekends, I take her out into the Puget Sound. I hired Kevin as my successor. I taught him the dead man's switch. I gave him his own token. "Why?" Kevin asked. "Don't you want to keep the control?" "No," I told him. "The point was the respect." I looked out at the water. "Besides," I grinned, "I still have the master override code, just in case." I saved the company, and in the process, I saved myself. To all the engineers, the plumbers who keep the world running, know your worth, and never ever give up the keys until the check clears. And that is the story of how I used a dead man's switch to turn a firing into a $5 million due or payday. Remember, always read the error logs. Fade to black.